Where is... Welcome, everybody. Okay, I'm gonna get started in a few minutes. Be praised. Hallelujah. I don't know who's on right now. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited. Why has it taken me so long to do this? Hi, welcome. As you're coming in, drop it in the chat where you're joining from. But yeah, we're going to get straight to the point in a couple of minutes. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for just wanting to know more about social work. I feel like at this point, I am advocating for people to get into the field of social work because honestly, it's really, it's really a great career, if I do say so myself. For those of you who are going to be watching the replay, welcome, welcome, welcome. You can skip to the, how many minute mark am I going to say? You can skip to the 3-minute mark. That's where I'm going to get into the nitty gritty because I don't want to bore you with all the introduction stuff. All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. I was about to pray. That's so funny. Um, but yeah, welcome everybody. I'm so used to praying before I start meetings and stuff. But yeah, welcome to my channel. My name is Cynthia, and I am a licensed clinical social worker in the states of Maryland and DC. DC is not a state, but you get me. Um, I'm also a clinical supervisor as well. That is my newest accomplishment. And a little bit about me, I have been in the field of social work now for going on 9 years. A little bit later this year, we'll make it 9 years that I've been doing social work related work. I started, I have a video on how I even got into social work. So please, if you're interested on how I got into social work, go ahead and check that video out. But yeah, I have been doing this, like I said, for close to 9 years unofficially, but officially, I've been doing this now for close to 5 years. I love everything about social. Do I love everything? I love a lot of things about social work. Yeah, it's a great field to get started out in. I've always been school based. And so I just want to give this disclaimer that a lot of my experience is coming from someone who has worked in various school settings from DC to Maryland, Baltimore area, different areas, okay, all over. So I'm going to be speaking from a perspective of someone who's worked in a school, but honestly, if you've worked in a school as a licensed therapist, then a lot of what I'm saying can apply to you. Welcome for those of you who are joining. Please let me know you're here in the chat. I want to know, are you a social worker? Are you not? Are you just here because you just want to learn? Let me know. I would love to hear who's here. So yeah, that's a little bit about me. I'm gonna just jump right into the questions. I did get some questions, so shout out to you all for dropping questions. So, someone asked, what drew you into the field of social work and how has that impacted your walk with God? So, as I said before, long story, check out my video on how I got into the field of social work. But I'll just say, long story short, for those of you who have not seen that video, I was actually pursuing law as a career. I was going to be a lawyer. And long story short, it wasn't God's will for me to go into law. And so I took time to pray and all the things. And I ended up in social work. That's literally like the short story, short version, because there's a lot. But yeah, so that's what drew me into the field of social work. And then the second part of that question says, how has this impacted your walk with God? Very good question. I would say that this has really, I know that I've always had the gift of compassion and mercy, but I feel like it's further extended that gift. Um, I see your question in the chat. I'll get to that. Thank you for sharing. I love the participation. Um, so yeah, how has that impacted your walk with God? It has made me more of a compassionate individual. It's made me more of an individual who operates in the gift of mercy. And so I would say that that's how it's impacted me. I go to my clients, I go to God on behalf of my clients. I find myself, and it's not every single time, but I do find myself praying more, especially when I realize the limitations of myself as a clinician and just the limitations of the field of therapy in general. When you encounter people that are dealing with serious stuff like schizophrenia, like borderline personality disorder, or any type of major disorder that this joint can only come out by prayer and fasting. You know what I mean? It's going to force you to the place of intercession. It's going to force you into the place of prayer. And so, with that said, it has really helped me to go to God more when I find myself just feeling defeated. If I'm going to be honest, working with certain clients, I'm just like, God, like I've done all the interventions I've been taught, I've done everything. This one is a matter of prayer and fasting and just seeing the hand of God. I actually shared a testimony on one of my vlogs when I was working in a school, and there's someone who I had worked with before who, I mean, this person was dealing with demonic oppression. And of course, I'm choosing my words wisely because, hello. Yeah, this person was dealing with some serious stuff. And I remember just going and praying and praying and praying and praying and praying. There was another believer that I worked with at the time, and she would also pray for this person. And I mean, the world will say, oh, it's this, it's that. But as a person of the spirit, these clinical diagnoses are nothing but demons. You know what I mean? And so yeah, so her and I would pray and pray and pray. And then I remember it was time for summer break, so we all left, we went home, and then we came back from summer break. This person was a completely different individual. I mean, things that the person used to do was no longer doing them. This person was literally in their right mind. I wish I had my Bible with me, but there's a scripture that talks about, when the man that was full of demons was stricken by demons. When Jesus encountered him and delivered him, he was back in his right mind, and the demons would literally cause him to afflict pain on himself. And whenever he encountered Jesus, he no longer did that. So you would say that person has some type of mental disability or disorder, right? And then the world would give them this, and they would treat them with this and medicate them on this. And it's like, they just need to encounter Jesus Christ and be free for real, for real. And so that's just a testimony. So that's just an example of how like that has grown me in my relationship with the Lord, because again, there's certain things I know a little CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, is not going to do it. Dialectical behavior therapy is not going to do it. You know what I'm saying? A little bit of medicine here and there ain't going to do it. You don't need Adderall, you need the Holy Ghost. You know what I'm saying? Adderall is a medication that people use when they have ADHD. And so, yeah, it has helped me in my prayer life, going to the Lord on behalf of people that I work with, that I know I don't have nothing else for them but Jesus. So I hope that answers that question. The person who asked me that, I don't know if he's here, but great question. I have a question in the chat. What are the most rewarding and challenging aspects of this job? The most rewarding, I would say, is really just seeing the progress of your clients, because a lot of times you work with clients, sometimes for years, and you're working on the same exact goal. And it's like, bro, like, I don't know what else to do. I'm tired. You get what I mean? Because it's like there, it seems like there's no progress. It seems like there's no growth, but but there is growth. Hi, Ashley. Welcome. So yeah, there is growth. There's actually something happening with the client. And so I remember having to consult my supervisor at a time like, I need help. I don't know what else to do with this person. I don't see any progress in our sessions. It's literally, when I tell you, it's literally the same exact thing every session. And it has been for the past few months. Like the client wasn't progressing, the client wasn't regressing. It was just, and I'm like, I don't know what else to do. And so I remember the one session that was had where it literally felt like you could see the client could finally see the light of day. And the client said something along the lines of like, I'm no longer dealing with what I dealt with. It just, the relief you get, the joy you get as a therapist. It's like, oh my gosh, like breakthrough is here. So I would say that that's the most rewarding part, is just seeing your clients reach their goals and come out from that dark cloud of, you know what I'm saying, like the mental oppression. That's the most rewarding. As far as the most challenging, I would say that I used to volunteer on a crisis intervention team. Um, no, that's a good question. You know, Ashley, that's actually one of the questions that I have here. So great question. I'm gonna get to that. But the most challenging, so I used to volunteer on this crisis intervention team, which is where I, along with several other clinicians, psychologists, therapists across the state, would respond to different crises in a school. And so most of the time it was like, if a student had passed away, if a teacher had passed away, we were literally the people that they would call in the county and say, hey, we need you to report to this school in the morning. We need you to deal with this grief. You know what I'm saying? And like really just provide a space for the kids and the teachers to mourn. Sometimes we would be the ones to break the news to the kids. Like they would give us like a standard letter to read and say, hey, there's been a passing of your, you know what I'm saying? So that was hard. Ooh, that was hard. I feel like, yes, social work, you do get exposed to a lot of things, but for me, that was like my, I don't want to say breaking point, but that for me was like the most challenging part of the work that I was doing, because it's like, man, like I think the youngest person that we had to respond to for a crisis was, I think, 5 or 6 that had passed away. And so, yeah, it was rough because, you know, yeah. So that was something that I would say was the most challenging aspect of my job. But that was a volunteer position. So, I mean, obviously, I can leave and do it as I want. I don't have to constantly do it. Welcome for those of you who are just joining. This is so funny. I feel like a pastor or like a, you know how like they say like, oh, let us know where you're tuning in from when they're doing stuff. But anyway, thank you for joining. Please let me know if you have any questions. I do have several questions already that I will be asking. So yeah. Someone asked me, well, let me answer Ashley's question. She said, this may be a funny question, but do you have to be good at math as a social worker? I'm taking a math class for my prerequisites for social work and I'm struggling. Girl, I'm sorry that you're struggling, but to be honest with you, you do not need to be good at math. Um, yeah, I mean, unless you're like calculating like your work hours for the week, you know, like there's literally, I don't have a recollection of like anything that I've learned growing up in math, growing up in like middle school, high school, even college, where it's useful for me now. And it's not to say you don't need math at all, but specifically for the field of social work, I don't think so. I think there are things about math that do help you in life in general. Like with math, you're developing critical thinking skills. And so, yeah, like in hindsight, it does help. But Nobody's about to be asking you no equations and stuff like that. So she's like, "Oh, good. Yeah, yeah, you don't need to be super you don't need to be a mathematician at all." All right. Let me see what else. What else? What else? What else? You're welcome. Someone asked, "How have I been?" Man, that's a really great question. You know what? Check in on your care provider friends and see if they're doing well because it's not easy. These care professions are not easy. But thank you for that question. I have been doing really, really well. I've gone through a lot of changes in my life in the last year, all good changes. But you know, when you go through change, you have to adjust to change. Amen. Praise God. And so I think for me, it was really like an Amos 9, 13 to 15 season. You know, like everything was happening so fast. My head was literally spinning. It was just so much change at once. And so that's probably why you all have wondered, like, where is she at? She hasn't uploaded a vlog in so long. It's because I just went through so much change and it was really hard adjusting, if I'm being honest with you. But I feel like I'm at a place now where I am settled a lot more. And so hopefully I plan to come out with more content. But other than that, I've been doing really well. I've been getting closer to Jesus. I've been reading my Bible. I got a new Bible. I have like three Bibles, I feel like. And the most recent one that I got is the Thompson Chain Reference Bible. And it's been really helpful for me to help me understand the Bible, not just read surface level, but like really, really dive deep. And so that's been like really cool, just like taking my time, not rushing with my Bible reading. Um, yeah, so that's been helpful for me. That has aided in my overall just like health and well-being, just reading the word of God. And so yeah, someone asked, "What does decompressing look like for you amidst the different cases you have worked with?" I am really good at I'm not checking my email after I'm done work. So I have coworkers who, you know, they just love to talk about work outside of work hours. No, no, no. So I'm really strict. I'm really like big on boundaries. And so I'm not talking about work if it's not during the work week. So I feel like I have a pretty good handle on that, as well as I have a thriving life and community outside of my work. I don't believe that I have any other friends that are therapists, believe it or not. I know people who are therapists, but I don't have like close friends who are therapists, and so it helps when you have people around you who are in different professions. They have different interests, so that when you all come together, like you're not talking about therapy or work, like you're talking about other things. You have different interests, so I do so much more outside of work, and that helps me because a lot of what I do, it is very heavy mental related things. And so I I've just learned again boundaries, and then also just having other interests outside of work that won't remind me of work, if that makes sense. Yeah, thank you all for the questions. This is really good. It's really good. I want to get to some of the other ones I was asked before. Someone asked, this is really good. I actually did a live on this a while back, but I'll answer it again. Someone asked, advice on staying grounded in Him being God, while in the field and being bold. If you haven't noticed by now, I'm a believer. So I'm talking, you know, I talk a lot about my faith, but they asked, how do you stay grounded in Him while being in the field and being bold? One thing I'll say about social work is, oh, Britt. Oh, okay. Yeah. Britt, I encourage you, check. I have a live that I did sometime last year where I literally did a whole live on this, but I don't mind sharing again. So, oh goodness, the field of social work, I'm gonna just break it to you now. Like any other profession, you know, it's there's a lot of new age practices within the field of social work. So you're gonna find that a lot of interventions have to do with yoga and mindfulness and energy and crystals and come on, you know what I'm saying? So I've always, again, I'm just a vocal person. Um, So I've always just been vocal about this is where I draw the line. Okay. My jobs are very aware of that. The places I've worked, they know I am not enabling anything that will cause me to compromise my faith. Okay. They're aware. So it's not like I'm like a hideout Christian. They're very aware that Cynthia is not enabling um anything that would cause me to compromise or denounce my faith, right? So whether that's, homosexuality, whether that's multiple pronouns, whether that's whatever, you know what I'm saying? I am not enabling that. I'm not enabling yoga practices. There have been times where um, there have been different practices that would happen, like first it's presented as self-care, but I'm not doing it. You know what I'm saying? If we're doing yoga, I'm not inviting demons into my life. And so, yeah, I've just always been very vocal about that and not coming from a place of like, oh, I'm better than you and like, nothing like that. Is more so just there has to be a standard because if you guys think about it seriously, like when it comes to like, and I'll just say the Muslim faith, right? There's so much respect for Muslims because they don't joke about their relationship with their God. They pray several times a day. They don't eat certain things. You know what I'm saying? Like people respect them in their religion because they don't compromise. And so if they and they're praying to a God who's dead. Let's just call it what it is, right? And so if they can be bold and if they can be so convinced in something that is not real or not true and the world respects that, how much more us? How much more the followers of the way who actually are following the right way, right? How much more us? And so I hope I answered that question. Britt, you can add more onto it if you would like to. But yeah, I would say your love for Jesus has to be greater than your desire to keep a job. And that goes for anything. That goes for if you work in social work, that goes for if you're a medical doctor, that goes for anything. If you're a teacher, you have to love Jesus more than anything. I'm telling you, anything. God will keep you. You know, there's something I made a post on LinkedIn recently about Daniel and how God was able to keep Daniel in Babylon. Babylon was a place that was full of debauchery, okay? It was full of idol worship, false gods. Idols had been erected to false gods, and yet Daniel was kept unspotted and unstained from the influence of Babylon. He was in a Babylonian system, and yet he did not bow to the gods. He did not bow his knee. He did not worship their gods. And God kept him in that place. And it was so much so that people began to say, who is the God of Daniel? We need to find out who the God of Daniel is. And so I say this to say that your love for Jesus has to be greater than your love for your work, your love for a check, your love for anything. You have to love him more because they will test you, they will try you. And I also want to say this, your silence is not your silence doesn't equate to, oh, they're just going to know that I don't agree with it because I'm silent. No, no, no. There's a place for you as a believer to actually speak up in boldness and say, I am not enabling this practice. I am not. I have someone in my life who's an attorney and she believes the Lord has called her into the field to defend the faith. You know what I'm saying? And she is on the front lines trying to defend the faith in the field of law. And she has made up her mind, I'm not going to compromise. And so I will tell you, regardless of if you choose social work or not, you have to be resolute that I'm not going to defile myself with the king's delicacies. I'm referencing Daniel. I don't know the exact chapter or verse, but you have to make up your mind that I am not going to be spotted or stained by the world. I'm not going to compromise. The Bible says that promotion does not come from the east or the west, it comes from the Lord. So you cannot fear your bosses or your supervisors in such a way where you feel like they are going to be the ones to promote. Like if you compromise, then hopefully they'll promote you because now you agree with them or they agree with you. You cannot have that mindset, right? You need to have the mindset that God promotes me, right? And so I am not going to compromise. God's going to honor you when you honor God in front of him, in front of man. Trust me, he got you. I'm a living testimony. In due time, I will share my testimony. But yeah, yeah, I'm glad this was helpful, Britt. Yes. Oh, you're a brand new LMS girl. Reach out. Email me. Email me if you need any support or whatever. I do have consultation sessions if you're like, girl, I need help. But yeah, I am also a social work supervisor as well. So anyway, I'm not here to promote stuff. uh Actually, no, I can let me correct myself. Yes, if you're looking for consultations or if you would like supervision, I do offer that as well. You can reach out to me. And yeah. So, what do you wish you knew about before getting into social work? What do I wish I knew? I don't think yes, ma'am. Let me actually give you my email, Britt. And this is on my I believe it's on my bio somewhere, but this is my email so you can just reach out for assistance. Is there anything I wish I knew? Um um I guess I didn't know how woke the field was. I wish I knew that. Like, I wish I knew, because coming in, if I'm being honest with you, I thought social work was a place where everyone is just, you know, they love God. You know what I'm saying? Because when you're in the caring profession, you just think if everyone cares about people in this way, surely they must be good people and they must love God because you know what I'm saying? Like no one else gives you that attribute. No one else who else would give you the attribute of loving people in their vulnerable state? You know, who else would give you that? And so I honestly thought coming in, and this was this was just me being, I just didn't know, naive. I thought that, being in social work, everyone was like a Christian, you know what I'm saying? Or like loved God or had some type of anchor, but boy, was I deceived. That is not the case at all. So I wish I was a little bit more prepared for that. As far as the workload and stuff and all the things, I was privy to that before getting into social work. Like I always knew it was a lot for people. And I always knew that for some people, it just didn't make sense for them to work a lot and then not see what they need to get and pay. Like it didn't measure up. I've known that. But again, my reason wasn't like, oh, well, it's because of the money. Trust me, if you're looking for money, you can get paid well in social work. You can actually get paid well. Let me even just say that. You can make a good penny in social work. However, um, it's not like you can start off making six figures. It's not that, right? And so, yeah, my reasoning, was like, again, this is the field I believe the Lord wants me in, and so, yeah. So yeah, there were things that I knew about social work prior to, but then there were also things that I felt blindsided by. Like, I didn't know people were like this, but yes. So I have some other questions here that I just found online, honestly, because I felt like they would be good discussion questions. And for those of you who are just joining, welcome. Feel free to drop some more questions in. I feel like I'll be wrapping up in about 20-ish minutes or so. So if you have any pressing questions, reach out to me, ask them now. I'm like an open book when it comes to social work. Someone or no, so this was one that I found online. It says, what happens when systems fail the people you're trying to help? This is like I feel like every profession, I was just having a conversation with someone about how there's so many holes in the system in general, not even in social work. So, you know, that's one limitation I will say when it comes to social work is that there are so many other factors that um, hinder your ability to be effective as a therapist or yeah, effective as a therapist because there is this multi-systemic approach, right? You're not just treating the person, but you're treating the person in the environment. And when the person that's in the environment has a lot of disruptions in their environment, it's going to be hard for you to actually treat the person. So let me give you an example because I know I'm using a lot of grammar, a lot of English. So you can work with a child who has severe anger issues and they're just tearing up the school and they are not responding to any treatment method. You can literally work with the child, teach them the things, give them the interventions, give them the coping skills. You can do everything you can do, right? But if that child has a mother at home who is dealing with intermittent explosive disorder, meaning they just lash out. They're dealing with some serious rage and anger, and that's being reinforced every time they go home. You see what I mean? How effective is your therapy session going to be? You get what I mean? Like if they're what you're trying to cause them to unlearn is constantly being what's the word? It's constantly being reinforced over and over and over and over. It's like, how effective is that, right? And so you cannot just isolate the person from his or her environment. You have to consider the fact that the environment also needs help too, right? So I know that's not a necessarily a systemic one, but there have been times where, homelessness is a huge thing, right? And so you're working with a client to get housing. That's a major one. I've even had to do working with them to get housing. They literally need a place to stay tonight. There are no open shelters, whatever. You're working with them to get housing, but there are all these stipulations. They're asking for proof of income, they're asking for ID. What if this person is coming straight from the street? They don't got that. They do not have that. But because the system is saying we need all these things in place before, which understandably so, it causes a delay in the care that the client could be getting because the system is saying you need X, Y, and Z. Or the system is saying, yeah, people have been on the housing list for 10 years. So go ahead and put your name on it. Like, 10 years, they need a place to stay now. So that's like the one thing that comes to mind when I think of this question. There's so many holes in the system, and oftentimes that makes it very hard for us therapists to do our jobs effectively. There's a lot of turnover in the field of social work. I'll be honest with you. I feel like there's a lot of turnover in caring professions in general. I know nurses, I know people who are in any profession, and there's a lot. I have a couple friends who used to be bedside nurses, and they talked about just wanting to get out. I know at least three people that have that experience, and so yeah, I'll say that there are a lot of systemic holes that make it hard for me to address the needs of my clients. And sometimes you feel helpless, but other times you're just like, I mean, you do what you can do. We always talk about the circle of control. Cynthia, is this in your circle of control, right? Can I control the system? Can I control Medicaid? Can I control HUD, the housing urban development? Like, can I control that? No, I can only control, hopefully, my client's interventions and his or her responses to treatment. So, yeah. Yeah. This is another good one. How do you handle situations where you disagree with the client's choices? Great question. Great question. So let me give you an example. Say you have a client who they're an abuse. I'm just giving an example. This is not any, you can, no, this is just, you have a client who your client is a male and the client is in a relationship with a female, and the client who is a male is being abused by his female partner, and your client comes to you and says, hey, what should I do? Should I stay? Should I go? Obviously you cannot control your client's reactions and decisions. And so, you of course get the client. The point is, you're not getting the client to do what you want the client to do. You're getting the client to make a decision that would be healthy and safe. We're always pursuing safety is number one. And so the client says, yeah, I've heard you, therapist. I've seen the pros and cons. I've weighed it. I must stay. I must stay with this abusive partner. I know she nearly choked me the other day, but I must stay. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, you can you can only counsel but so much. You can document. If you do not document, technically it never happened. So you document to cover yourself. You report it to whatever authority figure you need to report it to. If you have a supervisor, you're still getting your hours. If you um if you even need to alert the local authorities, you know what I'm saying? Like, you should do that to make sure you are covered, because you don't want a liability on yourself. At the end of the day, you are a licensed professional, and so you don't want that you're being held liable for something. So I would say in those cases, just documenting it, seeking consultation, seeking supervision. What should I do? and then having to contact local authorities if it's a safety issue. I think for the most part, that's only been the time where where I haven't agreed with a client's decisions if it's safety related. So, yeah, but you will find that you will find a conflict in not interest, but you'll find a conflict in goals for therapy. And so you just have to use wisdom. You just got to use wisdom. I know I'm saying a lot. Let me pause. Let me pause. Let me get a drink of water. Feel free to ask some more questions. I'm going to do like maybe two or three more and then I'll be wrapping up. Whew, okay. Let me see. A lot of these I've already answered. What has been your favorite social work role? Great question. What has been my favorite social work role? Okay, so I'll tell y'all the different things I've done and then I'll pick from there. So I've done school-based therapy, I've done outpatient therapy, and I have done supervision, so supervising therapist. I would say out of the three, I enjoy supervision, and I may be speaking too soon on this because this is fresh. This is literally fresh. But I really do like the operational side of things, like going into my supervisees' notes, overlooking their notes, um, checking off on notes. I like the idea of that. Now I haven't officially started, but I feel like I will. I believe one of my gifts is teaching and consultation. And so I love having supervisees come and ask questions. I love doing stuff like this. And I feel like when you're an average therapist, you're not allotted that opportunity. So I would say that being a supervisor has been my favorite so far, just because I can check the back end of things. I can make sure the diagnosis is aligned with, it's consistent with the rest of the notes in the treatment plan. And I can just see how things are happening on the back end side of how a practice is run and not necessarily providing direct care. And as much as I have enjoyed being in various school settings. I The older I get and the more advanced I become in my career as a social worker, I'm losing less interest in providing direct care. It may come as a shock to some of you, but I'm just like, yeah, yeah. I kind of want to do more macro, like do more operational stuff and consultation. So that's where I'm at this point in my career. Great question. Great question. Okay, let's see if I can get two more here. It says, what skills are most important for someone considering social work? I would say you have to be an individual who um you need to be organized. Okay? You have to be organized because the truth of the matter is on average, I'm just throwing this number out there from my conversation with various social workers and therapists. You're going to be seeing on average 25 to 30, sometimes 35 clients a week. Okay. That's not just that you're seeing them. You have to do documentation for them. You have to make sure your treatment plans are in for them. You have to make sure that your evaluations, your intakes are done for them. You know what I'm saying? You have to be able to track the progress for each client that's on your caseload. So you need to be organized. If you're someone who you struggle with organization and other executive functioning skills, I'm not going to say this field is not for you because I believe anyone can adapt to anything. I'm going to say that you will probably have a hard time because if I don't know how you can have 25 to 30 people on your caseload and you're not able to organize their notes, you're not putting in their notes. I sound like a supervisor now. You're not putting in their notes until a week after. How are you remembering everything y'all talked about in the session? And I'm very type A. So the way my brain works is like everything got to be organized a certain way. How are you able to remember what happened in the session? Are you writing down the notes? Where are you putting them? You know what I'm saying? Are you making sure it's in a safe environment? Are you locking it up? Because there's just so many risks with doing that. And so, organization, you have to be organized as a social worker. Okay, you can't be walking around with a briefcase. Your client's notes are falling out, treatment plan all over the place. You don't know when the last time you did an eval. You don't know the last time you did a GAT-7, a generalized anxiety disorder assessment. You don't know nothing because you've been like everything is everywhere. So I'm really big on, and I'll give you all this tip. I'm really big on having um, charts and stuff like that. So utilize Microsoft, Google, I think it's Google spreadsheet, whatever you have to do to make sure that you have the intake date, write out all your clients, write out the intake date, write out their initial eval, write out their treatment plan, write out their next eval. Like make sure you have a way where you can keep up with this because y'all, I'll share this one experience. I was actually subpoenaed to court once. I was subpoenaed to court for someone I worked with, and thank God the lawyer was a best interest attorney, meaning the lawyer was working in favor of the client, and so it was like, okay, bet we're working together. But if I did not have a paper trail of everything my client and I had talked about, treatment plan, goals, what was I going to do in court? You know what I'm saying? What am I literally? Because legally, I'm required to go. So you have to make sure that you are organized because we are licensed professionals and you could potentially be subpoenaed to court to appear before a judge, and your say is going to be detrimental to the decision of your client's future. So organization is huge. Last one I'll say is you have to be someone who's compassionate. You cannot be someone who, you just don't care about people. I don't think you would do well in the field of social work because literally the field of social work works with people in vulnerable populations to help them to reintegrate into society or help them overcome challenges that they're going through. If you're someone who you don't have the time for that, you're not interested, then I would go ahead and just do something else that doesn't require working with people. Any people focused career, you need to be able to be patient with people and love people where they're at and be compassionate. Okay. Yes. Yes, 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 yes. Last question. I got to do this again, y'all. I really do. I'm having so much fun if you can't tell. Um, uh, uh, um, I've answered a lot of these. I feel like I don't want to be redundant. Mm, I want to hear from you all. I have a couple of you on. Anyone have one final question? Like, think of a good question that you can give me as I close, because I've answered a lot of the ones that are here. I will ask, this will be the last one. Mm, this will be the last one that I will ask. This is just something that I found earlier. Um, I don't want to get into that one. I don't. It's hard doing something like this sometimes because you don't want to share any identifying information. Okay, you do not want to give any any identifiable stuff, and I don't want to start saying things that you can trace back to a client. So, um, yes, I will answer this final question. It says, do, 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 do. What advice would you give students entering the field? This will be my last question. I would say, um, have an idea what type of population you want to work with, because that'll definitely help you so that you're not wasting your time getting roles, getting into jobs that, it's like, okay, I could have been doing something else. And so have an idea. I knew part of my calling just in life is I'm called to children. And so I always knew I was going to work with children. I just didn't know in what setting. So I would say just have an idea of what population you want to work with. You don't have to have it all figured out, but just at least know because that'll help you scale it down because the really cool thing about social work is that there's so many different paths you can go on. The field is so broad. You can literally be a social worker in the military, you can work in the Veterans Affairs, government. There's so many things you can do as a social worker. So just to help you so that you're not overwhelmed, I get this question a lot, like, what are some good jobs you do starting out as a social worker? And it's like, scale it down to the population you know you want to work with, and then go from there. So have an idea of that. And then um, when you do get an internship, um, not an internship, when you do get into the population you want to work with, make sure that you are building connections, y'all. Make sure that you're building connections. I remember I worked at an outpatient clinic in the past, and I don't think he was a nurse practitioner. I think he was a medical doctor who was a psychiatrist. And I remember he was leaving the agency and was like, "Reach out to me ever if you're looking for a job, or reach out." You know what I'm saying? And so just having rapport, because you never know when you're going to need someone. You never know when you're going to need a new role. You just never know. So make sure that you make connections and ask questions, y'all. I don't know where we learned this from, where it's like, maybe it's like when you're in grade school, when you're just starting out in school, and you have this fear of asking questions because you don't want it to look like silly. It does not matter, because 9 times out of 10, the question that you are thinking of asking, someone else wants to ask that question, but they are afraid of asking it because of the same reason. They don't want to look foolish. Ask questions, right? Ask your professors questions, take advantage of their office hours. Ask questions, y'all. Like, reach out to people on LinkedIn that you see doing what you want to do. Don't be afraid of being rejected. Reach out and say, "Hey, I see you doing a role that I'm interested in doing. Can you tell me more about it?" You know what I'm saying? Like, network. Do not be afraid. Ask questions, and get clear on the type of population you want to serve, because social work is so big, and I don't want you to be overwhelmed trying to figure it all out. So that is what I would say concerning that. Man, we have come to the end of this live. This was great. I had so much fun. Did y'all enjoy this? Give me some feedback. You have a question that's burning on your heart. Any other question? Yay! I'm glad it was great, Britt. So glad. So glad. Should I do more of these? Let me know if you all would be interested in seeing more. Okay. Okay. Yeah, we gotta, maybe we'll just do like themes. Like, maybe, okay, Ashley saying yes. So maybe I'll just do like themes. Like, it'll be like this Q&A is specific to policy and advocacy. The next Q&A is specific to direct care and practice. This Q&A is specific to the exam. Oh my gosh, we didn't even talk about the exam. Y'all, listen, so much there, so much I want to share about the licensing exam. But I am like an open book when it comes to this. So don't feel afraid to ask. I put my email somewhere in the chat beforehand, so feel free to reach out if you have questions. Additionally, but yeah, I appreciate y'all for joining. Thank you. Had tons of fun. I am gonna go ahead, and if there's no more questions, and maybe I'll do it a little bit later in the evening, because I realize 5 o'clock is usually when people are leaving work. So I will probably do the future ones a little bit later in the evening. Have a great one, Brittany. Bye. Or I said Brittany, assuming your full name is Brittany. Britt, have a great one. But yeah, so I will consider doing it later in the evening next time. But just keep your eyes peeled out. Oh, good. Okay. Hey, girl. Yeah, I'll do it later in the evening, so that way more people can join. And you all just stay connected. I post on my community post tab. By God's grace, I'll be posting more actively. So if you want to just keep up with what I'm doing in social work, or anything else as it pertains to my channel, check out there. Okay. I love you all. Thank you for joining. I got to end this thing. And yeah, I'll see y'all next time. Bye.